before we move on to Kim?
Well, I was a great Gaitskellite, because he was a man who had a theory about the Labour Party, and it's a theory I shared. Indeed, I'd almost decided to give up looking for a parliamentary seat. I'd been turned down in so many places. I felt I wasn't going to be turned down anymore. And I went to the party conference at Scarborough. There was a great CND argument. Hugh Gaitskell made that great speech, the greatest speech I've ever heard made at a party conference, to fight and fight and fight again for the party we love. And I thought I wanted to be part of that fight, so I threw my hat in the ring again. The 50s were a difficult time when we were putting ourselves together after the 45 government. I mean, the 45 to 51 government was such a wonderful government that it was difficult to follow it. And it took us 10 years to pull ourselves together. So in the 50s we were in the doldrums, but it was clear by 62, by the time I was candidate for Sparkbrook, that we'd given the chance we were going to win the election. Indeed, everybody thought, I thought, that we'd win by more than we did. We had a bare majority, I think a majority of 2. It looked right until election day that we were going to win by a big majority, and it was Harold Wilson, who I never got on with very well, which is a bad mistake for somebody with ambition, but there we are. I think he's much better now than I did when he was about. I was very much under the influence of one or two anti-Wilsonites. I mean, Roy Jenkins was my neighbour in Birmingham, next door constituency. I was very impressed by Roy Jenkins, and still am. Tony Crossland, I loved. I mean, Tony Crossland was my great hero and friend. And they were very anti-Wilson. That was because they were friends of Gaitskell's and they didn't forgive Wilson for not being Gaitskell. So I imbibed some of their criticism, and I think I was unfair. I antagonised Wilson, which put my career back by many, or probably by Parliament. But it was a mistake, and I regret it, not because it put my career back, but because I was wrong. Wilson was better than I thought at the time. He was an operator, all right. Wilson also was, I mean, he was a mirror image to the Jenkins-Crossland opposition. He always thought, or pretended to think, that there was plots against him. I mean, in my certain knowledge, there were no plots against him. But Harold liked the idea there was, because it bolstered his support. You know, if you don't have me, you'll have these right-wingers. So it was a very funny, it was a strange time, because rather like when Neil was elected leader. But when Neil was elected leader, he was the only member of the Shadow Cabinet who voted for him. But we all pulled together and kept the party in one piece. When Wilson became Prime Minister, 2/3 of the Cabinet hadn't voted for him as leader. So again, but they didn't do it very sophisticated. They had troubles when we didn't have trouble. When I was a journalist at the end of my political career, I did a big profile of Mrs. Wilson, Mary Wilson, Lady Wilson. And she told me definitively that it was his illness that caused it. And his mind had gone. And she told me this poignant story that how he would sit up in bed and say, we've got to go to Hattersley, my father's very ill. And for years she said to him, but your father died 20 years ago. And the doctor said, you'll never convince him. When he had one of these attacks, the only thing you do is get up, you get dressed, you pack a suitcase, you walk around the block, you say, we were right to go to Hattersley, weren't we? And Harold had Alzheimer's, which I think periodic Alzheimer's. So sometimes he was in this condition and sometimes he was as bright as a button. And that's the worst sort, because when you're bright as a button, you know what's going to happen to you next time round. So he gave up because he knew he was losing it. So all this talk about scandal and spies and working for the Russians and women and all so much nonsense. Harold gave up because he thought he was losing his mind and thought he had to go when he was trying to go.